Hello guitar lovers! Those of you who are vintage Martin aficionados and collectors probably will enjoy this video and find a few things that they didn't know before. The rest will probably think that I'm borderline crazy spending time to do a video like this, but it's okay. As long as we all have fun, I think we'll enjoy it. So today we have a rare opportunity to compare two Martin guitars. It's the same model, same period, from 1930s. These instruments are only made 5 years apart and look about the same, as you can see, yet there are lots of difference between them. Both guitars went through body cracks, loose braces, bridge regluing, neck resets, frets leveling and some other things. However, both guitars are mostly original, and let me provide some details on this because it will be important for our comparison. The one on the left, 1934, this guitar has a period correct tuners, meaning they're not original to this guitar, but they were made at the same time for the same model, and basically they're like OEM replacements. Also, the saddle and bridge pins are not original, but visually they're copies of the original parts, so for the purpose of this video, this entire guitar looks exactly like it did when it left the factory. Now the one on the right, 1939, tuners are original, but shaft and gear for 6 tuner is incorrect replacement. The frets are most likely older correct replacement. I'm not 100% sure, but they look like they were replaced, and it's definitely a correct sized wire. Also, the nut is replacement I made, and as we go down, you can see a white pin. Well, it comes with a story. The pins are original, or at least they look like they are, except for the white one, of course. It took me some time to restore this guitar, so one day I was careless enough to leave pins in the open while I went to the kitchen to have a dinner. Our cat walked into my office, and when I came back, one of the pins was missing. It's still around the house somewhere, and we're still looking for it, so one day all pins will be the same color. Now the actual comparison from top to bottom. So far I counted 13 differences between these guitars that Martin did intentionally. Basically, this comparison is to show you how much Martin was changing, improving and creating during 30s with their guitars. Starting from a headstock and going down the guitar. 1934, headstock is lighter stain. 1939, headstock has a darker and brownish stain. Tuners are Waverly in both guitars, but this one's what's called clip plate tuner, which is this shape, and these are what's called Yoda heads, or sometimes they called fleur-de-lis. The French word for this lily kind of shape. So it's essentially same tuners, same radio and everything, but yet different design of the plate. We're at the nut. Now this is one questionable thing. This is definitely an original nut, it's ebony, and this is how it's supposed to be. This guitar came with ivory nut. I'm pretty sure it was original. Now, we know that for model 17 and 18 in 30s, the nuts were supposed to be ebony, but I have a strong feeling that those late 30s nuts, couple of years, they were doing ivory nuts. I've checked on the internet, I found more guitars from that particular year, 1939, with ivory nuts. Don't quote me on this. I think it's supposed to be ivory, but maybe it was a replacement. Either way, right now it's a bone nut that I made. Going down, frets. This guitar still has bar frets. It's early 34. So you can see here, if you look from the side, that this is bar frets. This guitar already has T frets, the contemporary style frets, and narrow frets, just like they're supposed to be for Martin of that period, but you know, the rounded frets. The next item on the list is fretboard dots. You can obviously see that these dots are smaller and these dots are larger. Neck reinforcement. Neck reinforcement is ebony here. There is like a square ebony rod installed here. And obviously it's a metal T-bar here. Next we have fretboard extensions. Now this is also questionable because at the time most of the iterations in Martin were done by hand, so there are different tolerances for different things, but I'm pretty sure, based on my limited experience with vintage Martins, that as time went by from 30s till 50s or 60s, fretboard extensions actually got thicker. This fretboard extension 1934 is only 3 millimeters thick, and I'm sorry for using metric system, it's just easier for me this way. This extension is 4 millimeters thick. Now, on the video they look about the same probably, but this is actually 25% thicker than this. And of course, much less hassle when you are ungluing it. Not so worried about breaking it off. Next item on my list would be a finishing, body finishing. You can see that this is more, they both stain, but this is a lot more natural color stain. This is like, you know, a reddish, easy stain. This one is more brownish. This is more brown, this is more red. While we are on the subject of finish, 34 is a semi-gloss finish. 39 is a full gloss finish. You can see that this is glossier than this. I am pretty sure it's the same kind of finish. They just buffed it to a full gloss. Pick guards look about the same, but of course those of you who have sharper eyes already saw that there is less distance between pick guard and bridge here than here. This is because this pick guard is 170 millimeters by 90 millimeters. This pick guard is 160 millimeters by 90 millimeters. Now all this, everything that I showed you so far is purely cosmetical. I mean, we can argue about different finishes and different, you know, frets. So there are a couple of changes that were made with this, between these guitars, and they're very important. First and foremost is neck itself. This guitar has neck with 44.5 millimeters. This one is 42.5 millimeters. It's only 2 millimeters, but it makes a difference, especially because this guitar has a wider neck and it's more of a vintage V-profile neck with a wider string spacing. String spacing is 59 millimeters in this guitar. This is a thinner neck, C-shaped neck, and it's 54 millimeters string spacing here. So there is a 2 millimeters difference here and 5 millimeters difference here. You can definitely feel it when you play. It's 100%. Feels like a completely different guitar. Now the other thing that happened to be different between these two guitars is how the braces are glued. This is what's called forward bracing. Up until sometime in 38, I believe, there was a certain position of the braces, X brace, that was standard for guitars. And then somewhere in 38, they actually shifted that X brace a little bit lower. The reason for that is because there was too much space here under the X brace, and I guess Martin, from what I understand, decided that there were too much of a bend in the top here, and shifting braces lower will make guitar sturdier. I think it actually did, although I'm not experienced enough to make any statements, but that's what it is. The braces here, the X braces shifted down a little bit lower. To my surprise, both guitars have exactly the same weight. They're exactly 3.3 pounds. At first I was puzzled because in my mind this guitar is supposed to be heavier. Not by much, but there should be a difference. It has a T-metal rod here, where it's just ebony here, and this is definitely heavier. But then I realized why. Because this neck is more narrow, and and C shape instead of E shape, but mainly because it's slimmer neck. It uses less wood, and maybe that's what balances out the weight between guitars. I'm not going to do any sound test, I'm not equipped for that. I'm just going to tell you my impression. Both guitars sound almost exactly the same, however, there is a very subtle difference. In my opinion, this guitar from 34 has a little bit more separation and clarity, when this one from 39 has a little more roundness and texture, but it's a little bit tighter. Now, if we're going to go into theories, it kind of makes sense, because when X braces were moved down, they made this part of the top stronger, but they also made this part of the top less vibrate. This guitar is supposed to be tighter than this one, that's what I'm trying to say, but again, it may be all in my head, just because I know. If you ask me which one I like better, they're very similar, but I would say that I like better this one, yet when I played it to my better half, and she was sitting across from me against the sound hole, she said that she likes this one better. And she also admitted that they sound very similar, so that's what it is. I also have a few very brief observations that I wanted to make, which again, I don't want you to quote me, I'm not vintage Martin aficionado. I only been doing this for limited number of years. I only had about a dozen or maybe a little more vintage Martin guitars going through my hands, so I'm not ready to make any serious statements here. However, if you put a block against this top, you can see some bulging over here. It's basic. It's perfectly within norm. It's not something that needs to be addressed. It's normal for vintage guitars, but nevertheless it's there. This guitar is almost perfectly flat. Again, there are various things that were in life in these guitars. They're almost 100 years old, so you know, lots of things happen to them, but because this is forward bracing, this is what Martin was kind of fighting with, this bulging behind the bridge, and it seems like it was addressed with a rear shifting, because this one is flat. The other thing is that I noticed is that the relief of the neck on this guitar is basically perfect, and I didn't have to do anything. I just reset the neck and relief. I didn't even touch the relief. I leveled the frets, I crowned them, and that's it. And I have about 0.07 of an inch relief here. Here, I also didn't replace the frets. Some of these frets were loose, and I had to get them back and also level them and crown them, but they are not replacement. Those are original frets. And relief here is about maybe 0.12, which is still acceptable for a vintage guitar, but not optimal. I think, at least partially, it has to do with the fact that this one doesn't have a metal neck reinforcements. The argument to that could be that bar frets are thicker and they're supposed to act as a reinforcement as well. This is true, but this is just results between these two guitars. I'm not making statements, as I said before. So I hope this was interesting. This is, like I said, a very rare opportunity. I don't know how many of you had such opportunity to have two of the same models, same time period. This is actually a very important model for Martin. This is an entry-level model. 17 is their lowest model that they had at the time, and it kind of saved Martin during the Great Depression. Right, this year's 34 and 39, Great Depression, this was a most sold model for Martin guitars. Because of this model and because of ukuleles that they make at the time, Martin survived Great Depression, and we still have that great company that makes great guitars. Well, I hope it was interesting, and see you all later.